Hey everyone, welcome to the KE Report, a company update from Banyan Gold. I am chatting with the president and CEO, Tara Christie. Banyan Gold is traded on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol BYN and on the OTCQB under the symbol BYAGF. Now, Tara, it's drill season in a market, a gold market especially, that continues to run higher with drills starting to turn up in the Yukon at the company's AurMac Gold Project. We had news on March 27th that said essentially the exploration program is commencing. Now, this is a fully funded, it sounds like at least 30,000 meter drill program. Let's first get an update on how this drilling is progressing. I know it's still very early on. And then talk big picture what this drilling is going to feed into in terms of balancing out potential resource updates and a PEA. Starting off with this program. Again, it just started. Talk to us about the three main goals of this 30,000 meter program, please.
Well, it's pretty exciting. We're following up first on some of those high grade discoveries that we've made and that intrusive dike that crosses the property, which, brings us not only some higher grade to drill, but also a greater understanding of where the potential intrusive is. We're continuing to grow both airstrip and power line. Last year we really refined our geological model based on the drilling. We did a whole lot of thinking big picture with some of the geophysics that we did, the ZTEM survey, which has given us some distal targets. So, we're focusing on grade, we're focusing on expansion, and we're focusing on big picture blue sky discovery. So exciting. We're already 2,500 meters in. Beautiful spring days. We're still taking advantage of the snowpack to drill holes in some of the areas that are more challenging to access in the summer. The days are getting longer and brighter, and our crew is firing on all cylinders, really excited about our drill program. Yeah, 30,000 plus meters, with $24 million in the bank, we're really well situated. We have room to upsize that program, but we're also fully funded. We could also be fully funded for a similar program in 2026. So we have lots of options. And of course, we're looking out for our shareholders first and foremost. This market's really exciting. We haven't seen our share price really re-rate like some of the others yet. But I think with the catalysts that we have this year, it's going to be exciting for our shareholders.
All right, let's break down a couple of these overall goals then. Starting with that higher grade area, following up on those drill holes from last year. With the drilling that's going to be focused here, what's the end goal here? Are you going to be able to, you think, define in a more confident way, maybe a measured or indicated resource around this high grade area? And can you give us an idea of what this high grade area looks like in terms of size, maybe strike length as it's currently known?
Sure. So first of all, some of the best intersections were that 16 meters of 9.32 grams per ton gold at only 65 meters depth. So fairly shallow, intersected this dike where it hit the metasedimentary package. And within that, there was even some, 4 meters of 33 grams, so a higher grade portion within it. But it's that long intersection of high grade, which really adds ounces right near surface. This is on the edge of the resource. So, that whole area and the whole up dip towards surface hasn't been drilled at all. So this would be adding higher grade ounces potentially near surface and even closer to surface as we drill it off to the north in that up dip direction. So, could be really important for another part of our starter pit or pits. So obviously a target that we're super excited about. We hit that intersection 5 times across the project. So, we have 2 kilometers of strike length that we can potentially see and drill off. But again, where does it go beyond that? So some of the geophysics is kind of giving us some ideas on where we might track this and what happens in the regional context, which is also very exciting.
So with this high grade area, as you de-risk this area, bring up the confidence in those ounces, do you see that adding to the overall ounces, which is already at 7 million ounces? Or is that more of just the de-risking and defining that area better?
Well, That specific area, a good portion of it is adding new ounces. There is some portion of it which you kind of get into where there's some existing over that strike length into the existing resource. So you would be upgrading it to indicated with some of the drilling that we're doing. But the real focus is let's really trace and understand where this goes and how many ounces it might add of these higher grades. So stay tuned for that. We're not rushing to get to, higher confidence than indicated. Remember the history of this project is, we still think, have we found the best yet? We haven't found our intrusion yet. This is related to a dike, which, could potentially lead to the intrusive. And a lot of the work we did last year was really technical work trying to understand the deposit, its formation, how the gold's hosted, how the higher grade hangs together, what the structural story is. So, we're armed with a lot more information this year. We brought in, some new team members with Duncan Mackay, ex-Yamana, really strong modeling skills, along with some of the other ex-Yamana team members. We've really upped our game this year in terms of what we understand about the project and the expertise that we're bringing to it. So I think that's pretty exciting.
So what about the expansion then in some of the near resource areas? I know that's also a focus of this program outside of defining or more defining that high grade area. Where do you see potentially some of that low hanging fruit for resource expansion in or around the current resource?
Well, west, east, north, because that's where that high grade is, and south, as well as beneath the pit. So, once we kind of understand and we get a new resource, and you can see where some of this higher grade is right at the bottom of the pit, and, the deepest part of our pit's 200 meters, there'll be some easy low-hanging fruit at the bottom of the pit where you'll get low strip ratio and you can add meaningful ounces. Some of the areas we have to think about, yeah, the resource might go there, but the overburden's really thick, so it might not come into the pit. We have a lot of targets. It's actually been having to reduce the number of targets we have because we can't drill everything, and particularly really focused on the stuff that we're going to drill while the ground's frozen here. And then we've really focused our plan on what is efficient to drill during spring freshet, because our drills will keep going through spring freshet. We don't have to shut down because we have lots of targets. And then, the summer targets, of which we have lots of them. And of course, we're ever adapting our plan. Every drill hole is giving you information, and we're using that to better target our plans and where we're putting other drill holes. So, lots of optionality for us.
So these near resource areas, the expansion of the resource, are these the same or similar targets to some of these blue sky potential discovery targets?
Some of them are, that obviously we've had lots of people with opinions about where they think the intrusive potentially is, and, where mineralization, we're going to drill test some of them this year, both proximal to the resource and a little bit more distal. And I think that was a large part of the technical work we did last year, was to really give us some more targets that are blue sky.
And that's not a big portion of the drill program, right? Just remind everybody approximately how much of that 30,000 meters, what portion of it will go towards some of these blue sky new discovery type targets.
Probably up to 20%.
Okay. So again, a lot being focused in and around the resource, but still that blue sky discovery type potential. Let's also talk about how this all filters into the balance between resource update and a PEA. I think both are planned for this year, and you already have the 7 million ounce resource, but you're doing a lot of drilling, and you still have some drilling from last year to incorporate in. So, what's the balance here from a corporate decision standpoint, timing wise, for resource update versus PEA?
Well, we have a timing constraint on the PEA because of our option agreement earn-in. So we have to do that by December of 2025. And, obviously you want to get as many ounces as you can and the right ounces into that mine plan that comes out in your PEA. And so, yeah, we have drill results from last year. We're working on getting those all into our new model. We have a new geological model that's being used for the resource. So that is it's taken some time and, double checking things with that. But now that we're drilling, we're not 100% confident on when the drill results will come in from the lab where we have the quoted timelines, but I never rely on those because they seem to change. And you get your drill results, you need to do your QA, QC, but we're pretty excited about what we could potentially continue to add to an updated resource. And you want the most ounces as you can into your PEA. And we've done a lot of the metallurgy that was really important last year, the de-risking that we did on understanding the mill options, getting 93% recovery with gravity and CIL, as well as having a really strong flotation option with gravity and flotation as well. So those are also important part of what's going to be driving your economics in your PEA. And this gold price is pretty exceptional. You're seeing gold prices. I've seen some pretty aggressive gold prices in PEAs and resources recently, but I think the 3-year trailing average is what, 2050 or 2100 now?
Yeah, that all just filters into better economics. But hey, you need to get this PEA out first. And when it comes to defining ounces for the PEA, do you envision bringing in all 7 million plus ounces, depending on what that resource update looks like? Or would you focus on a portion of the resource, still keeping that, I guess, carrot dangling, saying that we have a bigger resource, but here's economics on a portion of this?
At this stage where you've got an inferred resource, it would always be a subset, right? You only have 10 or 15 years generally goes into a gold mining project's PEA, probably 10. So it is a subset of that. And you know that as you continue to advance it, the other ounces and the ounces that it could potentially expand into would be brought in later. So that's all part of the process that, it's very unlikely in your first PEA that all your ounces come into it. That doesn't happen really in PEAs.
Okay, thanks for outlining that. Let's also just talk market wise here. As we've mentioned a couple of times, gold price, look, it's continuing higher. Gold is truly being the safe haven that it's touted to be in this market. And stocks are following along here. Even Banyan, I've noticed in your stock, you've had an increase in volume really since February. All stocks went through that bit of a correction in early April, but Banyan, just like a lot of other gold stocks, has rebounded. What can you tell us about the market environment and what you're hearing from shareholders, potentially new shareholders, especially on the volume front?
Well, that's nice because our stock is showing more liquidity, which I think is a really important thing for some investors to be able to see that, there's decent volumes, both to be able to acquire a position as well as to potentially sell it in future. And that brings a whole different set of investors who will look at your stock. And yeah, we've re-rated a bit. I think that we still haven't got that attention yet, and we'll start to get that as we start to put out some of our results and our other catalysts here. And you've seen some other gold companies, they put out some results and they get a really strong re-rate. We're currently, under $15 an ounce, might even be $13 per ounce today, versus some of our peers in the Yukon, which are more at 80 or over $100 per ounce. So that gives a lot of room for us to re-rate here. And I think we're only just starting to see investors start to, and particularly retail investors, look at gold stocks now that people are starting to understand that this gold price isn't just a blip. It's actually been persistent. It's significant. We're seeing really strong cash flows from majors. People will be looking to deploy their capital into things that haven't re-rated yet. And I think Banyan still fits that criteria that it's likely going to be revalued in the context of this gold price, especially with the work that we're doing and people knowing that we're going to have preliminary economics on this project by the end of the year. That's also a really important catalyst for some investors, is to actually not just have a resource, but have a resource with some indicated ounces, which gives them more confidence in the model. And other investors wait until the PEA phase where there's an idea of the potential economics and you show that the gold can get recovered. So that's why this year is going to be pretty transformative for us. We're going to have, the story for those that love exploration. We're going to have the more advanced investors that want to see some indicated ounces, and then those that really like to make their decisions based on economics. We'll have that too. So it'll be a nice progression of being able to continue to add different shareholders through the year.
It's definitely been encouraging for precious metals investors to see this market rebound and more interest coming into the sector. And also, as you said, stocks moving on the back of news, positive news, rather than it being a selling event. Just wrap us up then. News flow sounds very drill focused heavy, and then the economics, resource updates, a lot going on. But in the near term, what should we be watching out for, news flow wise?
Well, we'll have those drill results as you talked about. We will have a resource update and roll into our PEA by fourth quarter, and we'll have drill results through the year. Not all the drill results, and we still don't know how many would actually make it into a resource update that will go into the PEA. So that'll mean that, we'll have a PEA, but we'll have more results coming afterwards. So we'll be able to say, yeah, this is our snapshot of our maiden economics, and 43101s are a waypoint for a project as you continue to advance it. And then, we could advance to another PEA in 2026, incorporating our drill results, or potentially to a pre-feasibility study. And that'll really depend on what the market thinks and where we're at in terms of our share price. And I think it's going to be a pretty exciting market. There are not very many 7 million plus ounce resources out there in safe jurisdictions with roads, power, even cell phone service on the property. That infrastructure is exceptional. And I think we all know the Yukon's had a little bit of an overhang. I think we're seeing that clear up and renewed interest in the Yukon, particularly because of its extensive gold endowment that we've made these discoveries. And, effectively the last 5 years, we've had three major new gold discoveries in the Yukon. And I think we're ideally positioned right there in the center with infrastructure, which will help us be a first mover.
All right, Tara, thank you very much for this update. Again, Tara Christie, President and CEO of Banyan Gold. I'll post a link to the company's website in the show notes so all of you can click that link and read over the most recent news release, get a better understanding too of that AurMac Gold project. Tara, thank you very much for the update. I appreciate the time.
Thank you, Corey.